I'm male 27, am the second oldest of 4 kids. Amy, female 29, myself, Robert, male 26, and Krista, female 22. We're a pretty close-knit family. However, I feel that Robert's engagement to this girl, Rebecca, 26, somewhat threatens that. Robert met Rebecca about 5 years ago when they were studying at university, and they started their relationship about 2 years ago. At first, our parents, male 65 and female 63, were largely okay with things, as we all thought the arrangement was temporary. While they didn't openly disapprove of Rebecca, they constantly reminded Robert that she had too different a background, making it unlikely for them to take the relationship seriously. For some context, Rebecca is relatively polite, but a little crude and somewhat lacks modesty. According to Robert, she's developed a taste for expensive things, and he's often happy to indulge her. Amy disapproved from the start. She would tell Robert that Rebecca was crude and only after his money, and that he shouldn't entertain anything with Rebecca. Krista and I wouldn't say too much about it, but as things got more serious between Robert and Rebecca, I would try to remind Robert that we don't have the same values as Rebecca and that our parents wouldn't approve. Knowing how our parents value certain things, Robert has kept his relationship more low-key for the past few months. For example, during the Christmas holidays, he claimed to be traveling to Europe with his friends, when in reality, he spent time with Rebecca and her parents. Next week, we have a large extended family gathering from my father's side. Earlier this week, Robert told Amy and me on a group call that he had proposed to Rebecca, and she said yes. Amy was furious with this and told Robert that Rebecca was an unsuitable match for him and that our parents would be livid. Robert said that they would understand eventually, and Amy then told him that he was being childish and would be given a harsh reality check when he broke the news to our parents. I was even a little annoyed that he would make such a plan without discussing it with us first, but I decided not to say anything. After Amy left the call, Robert asked me if it was appropriate to tell our parents. I told him that it wouldn't be. He then asked why, and I told him that he already knew that marrying someone like Rebecca would cause significant embarrassment to our parents, particularly in the presence of our family, friends, and extended relatives. He got upset with me and told me that he was hoping for my support and that I disappointed him. My intention wasn't to hurt his feelings. I only wanted to give him a small glimpse of how our parents would react when they found out. Am I the idiot? Edit. She wore a crop top and leggings to our last family gathering. She also tried to engage in PDA with Robert. She swears quite regularly in casual conversations. Neither I nor my wife would want to engage in PDA. I think it's indecent and shouts insecurity. Even Robert sometimes looks a little embarrassed when Rebecca insists on hanging off of his arm. We don't humiliate ourselves and put our relationship on display for everyone. You are the idiot. Rebecca isn't threatening your close-knit family. Your close-knit family's blatant snobbery is. You don't have a problem with Rebecca developing a taste for expensive things. You have a problem with Rebecca having expensive things because you don't think she deserves them. Robert wasn't keeping his relationship low-key by spending the holidays with his future in-laws. He was avoiding your family. I don't blame him one bit. She's his fiancée, no matter how often you put the word in air quotes because you don't like it. Also, referring to her as a girl when she's 1 year younger than him, and the parents were okay with it as long as he wasn't serious. Like, yeah, she can be your plaything, but you have to dispose of her in due time. Ew. And then they can't believe their brother didn't discuss the proposal with the family first. Are they living in Downton Abbey? You and your entire family sound insufferable. Info. Is different background the dog whistle for I'm racist and classist that it seems to be? Ah, yes. Miss Elizabeth Bennet is completely unsuitable for Mr. Darcy because of her low social status, straight out of Pride and Prejudice. Hopefully the brother distances himself. The odds are he goes no contact soon. Yep, she doesn't keep quiet, She disagrees. She corrects Daddy. She doesn't giggle and blush and acquiesce. Gag. She's absolutely a woman who doesn't know her place. Everything OP mentions as crude characteristics sound exactly like what my father's family sounds like, who disowned me for being free-spoken and then, gasp, getting a doctorate. Immodesty is code for lack of shame for being herself. This woman is polite but crude. Robert and Rebecca are likely the only people in this family that aren't insufferably misogynistic and classist. I wish them well, far, far away from toxic families. Update. Am I the idiot for telling my brother that his fiancé is embarrassing? I spoke with Krista this evening. Earlier today, Amy had brought her up to speed, so she's familiar with the situation. Long story short, she overall isn't too interested and thinks the whole situation will sort itself out. While she thinks Rebecca is a little too clingy, she believes Robert probably has his reasons for indulging her. She did mention that Amy asked her to talk to Robert and ask him to reconsider his decision, but Krista declined, as she doesn't believe Robert has done anything wrong yet. However, she said that if Robert does decide to reveal his engagement to our parents during our family gathering, she'll be upset with him, as it would seem that he intentionally wanted to embarrass them. The last thing she mentioned is that, like Amy and myself, she believes our parents will significantly reduce Robert's financial support if he decides to proceed with this engagement. She thinks this may be a good thing, as it'll give us closure on whether Rebecca's only interested in his money. If Rebecca sticks around, Krista said she would be pretty disappointed in me, especially Amy. We'll all just have to wait and see how things play out. I am worried for Robert, but if he goes ahead with this, my hands are tied. I plan to talk to Robert later and advise him to be more discreet in revealing this information to our parents. OP, this investment is crazy. LOL, he's your brother. You don't have to keep him, and he's an adult. Why do you care who he's sleeping with and who he's going to marry? Why does your family care in the grand scheme of things? Are you guys going to be piping her and taking care of her? No, it's your brother. Mind your business. Let bro be happy. Your family is embarrassed. My daughter, Alexandra, teen, hates any shortened version of her name. This has gone on since she was about 10. The family respects it, and she's pretty good about advocating for herself should someone call her Lexi, Alex, etc. She also hates when people get her name wrong and just wants to be called Alexandra. She took Spanish in middle school. The teacher wanted to call all students by the Spanish version of their name, provided there was one. So she tried to call Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, and the teacher respected it. She had the same teacher for all 3 years of middle school, so this wasn't an issue. Now she's in high school and is still taking Spanish. Once again, the new teacher announced if a student had a Spanish version of their name, she'd call them that. So she called Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, but the teacher ignored her. My daughter came home upset after the second week. I'm not the type of mom to write emails, but I felt I had to do it in this case. If it matters, this teacher is not Hispanic herself, so this isn't a pronunciation issue. Her argument is, if these kids ever went to a Spanish-speaking country, they'd be called by that name. I found this excuse weak, as the middle school Spanish teacher was actually Hispanic and had come here from a Spanish-speaking country, and she respected Alexandra's wishes. The teacher tried to dig her heels in, but I said if it wasn't that big a deal in her eyes that she calls her Alejandra, then why is it such a big deal to call her Alexandra? Eventually she gave in. Alexandra confirmed that her teacher was calling her by her proper name. My husband feels I blew this out of proportion, and Alexandra could have sucked it up for a year. The school has 3 different Spanish teachers, so odds are she could get another one her sophomore year. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. The teacher has done nothing wrong. Converting names in a foreign language is a common thing, even when it's a complete swap like Etienne and Stephen in French class. It's not a personal attack or disrespect right off the bat. The middle school Spanish teacher probably gave in because it's not worth the hassle of dealing with parents who think every kid's demand must be met, which is what this high school teacher probably should have done for their own sanity. Your husband is right that you and Alexandra are overreacting to the situation. Your email isn't going to help either. Dude, you missed the part where the teacher's not calling all the students by a Spanish name. I don't agree that some students should be singled out while others are still being referred to by their given names. Also, her logic also makes no sense. I work with a large number of European colleagues. I don't pronounce their names in my accent, and they don't pronounce my names in their accent. We all call each other the name as it's introduced to us. Not the idiot OP. Her argument is if these kids ever went to a Spanish-speaking country, they'd be called by that name. What? That's not true, and quite stupid. We don't translate names. John can be John in any country. No one would call him Hans, Juan, or Giovanni against his will, just because there's a local version of his name. The fact is that once someone tells you what they like to be called, it's a tool move to call them otherwise. She's not asking to be called Beyonce or Cookie. She wants to be referred to by her birth name. It's a shame Dad doesn't have her back as well. My brother came over for dinner the other day. He was telling my son that black cats bring terrible luck and that my son should kick our black cat out. My tween son told him, "That's a really silly superstition." My brother didn't listen and went on about how black cats are evil. I just sat there watching him ramble and letting him embarrass himself. Eventually, my son said, "Why do I have such a stupid uncle?" I laughed. I confess I laughed out loud before telling my brother it was time for him to leave. Later on, our mom called me and said I should have made my son apologize. I told her my brother has the right to say what he wants, but my son also has a right to say what he thinks, especially after my brother tried to turn him against our family cat. My mom hung up the phone on me in a huff. Do you think I should have made my son give an apology just to appease my mom? Not the idiot. And honestly, your kid sounds awesome, and it definitely sounds like you're raising him to be an intelligent, confident human being with excellent critical thinking skills. If your brother doesn't want to be the stupid uncle, he shouldn't say stupid things. Congrats on raising a smart boy that calls BS on BS. So, dumb brother went and told mommy, and she thinks your kid should apologize? So he spouts nonsense. The kid calls him on said nonsense, then gets mommy to fight his battles for him? Does he look any smarter to you now? Your kid is hilarious, by the way. The only appropriate apology here is, "I'm sorry you're so stupid, uncle." Keep an eye on your brother for your cat's safety. Sorry you're related, but don't worry. Every family has one person they want to hide in a closet. They also have one very brilliant person, too. Obviously, your son is smart and confident enough to speak up about things that are wrong. Good job parenting. My mother and I have a very good relationship. She's also babysat my daughter more times than I can count for free. The only time I've ever paid her for babysitting was when I had to leave for a work trip or something of that sort, and I needed her to babysit my daughter for at least a week. The rate was $115 a day, which was very reasonable. Last week, I told my mother that I needed her to watch my daughter for a couple of hours while I did some errands, and she told me that she won't continue babysitting my daughter unless I start paying her for every hour, not just the long trips. I refused because what kind of grandparent asked to be paid to watch their grandchild for a few hours? We got into a pretty heated argument, so I had to bring my daughter with me, which was not great. I couldn't find anyone else who was available to take her in, and her father's not in the picture. He didn't want anything to do with our daughter, so we divorced. The child support payments hardly cover her bare necessities. One of my friends who had met up with me asked why I brought her along, and when I told her that I refused to pay my mother to babysit for just a few hours, I had no one else I could hire or trust on such short notice, She told me that I should pay my mother for babysitting every time, and not just for the work trips, because the poor old woman is spending her time and energy on a kid at her age, which I don't even know what that means. I never recalled my grandmother asking to be paid to watch me. That wasn't even fathomable, and she had babysat me until I was a teenager, so I was pretty much aware. I don't know. Am I the idiot? Edit. My mother is very well off. I only ask her to babysit once or twice a week at most. Sometimes maybe only 1 or 2 times for a whole month. The rest of the time I pay a nanny to watch my daughter, but during the time she isn't available, I ask my mother. I'm also an only child. My mother's in her early 60s, and she always enjoyed spending time with her granddaughter. Wow, how absolutely full of crap you are to just presume on your mother's time. You literally said she'd babysat your child more times than you can count, which absolutely means you're taking advantage of her. Your errands were obviously to go out and enjoy spending time with your friends. You are the idiot. Pay people for their time or do the work yourself, and you choose to have a kid, which means it's your job, not your mother's, to manage her. I'm 38 with a 9-year-old son, and sometimes his energy wears me out. Granny can't be chasing your crotch goblins around at 60. No. OP should have charged Mom a grandchild rental fee for the privilege of spending time with her kid. Jesus, OP's acting like her mom may not have plans of her own. She also doesn't know what arrangement her mom had with her grandmother. I didn't find out that the neighbor who used to watch us after school was getting paid until adulthood. I pay a nanny to watch my daughter, but when she isn't available, I ask my mother. This, coupled with her errand was to go to hang out with her friend, makes me think that OP's been dumping her daughter on Grandma to have fun on the weekends while avoiding parenting. She's asking Grandma to babysit once or twice a week, which is how many weekend days there are, and weekend days are the logical days for the nanny to have off. My brother has 50-50 custody with his ex-wife over my nephew, toddler. My brother makes more money than his ex, so even though they have my nephew the same amount of time, he still has to pay her $100 monthly. My brother will not shut the heck up about this. He complains about it constantly. When my nephew needed new shoes, she asked him to split the cost with her. He said no, and to use the $100. She said that the $100 was for monthly expenses, not large purchases. She also threatened to take him back to court. His lawyer advised him to just pay half for the shoes. Ever since then, he brings the child support up every darn day. I told him a few times it was getting old, but yesterday I lost it. I said, dude, shut up about your child support. We are all so sick of hearing this. God. My brother said I was a rude idiot. I think I can only listen to the same thing so many times before I get sick of hearing about it. It's $100. He spends more than that a month on stupid crap. It's not like he has cancer or it's $700. Then I would be more sympathetic. Am I rude and an idiot? Not the idiot. That's such a low order for child support. Almost insulting. And the fact that he still begrudges paying half for a pair of shoes is disgusting. Obviously, you could have addressed it in a better way. But seriously? $1,200 a year to attempt to make sure your child's standard of living doesn't change just because you got a divorce? What kind of parent is upset about that? That level of whining about child support would make me think that he only has 50% custody to minimize his payments, and not because he actually wants to spend time with the kid. He's not paying $100 a month for a clothing allowance. He's paying $100 a month to help the child's mother ensure the child gets the same level of care and housing with both parents. Mom's friend had shared custody. Her daughter moved between the two houses. Ex was supposed to pay all medical expenses. He refused to pay for new glasses. She hauled him to court, and his income had increased. She no longer had to pay child support on his time, but he had to pay a lot to her. Your brother seems headed in that direction. Tell the mom to take him to court and get more money so he'll actually take care of his son. I, 27 male, unfortunately got my girlfriend, 25 female, pregnant 3 months into dating. She was on birth control, but it failed. In hindsight, I should have also used protection, but I figured the birth control was supposed to be 99.9% effective. I never thought I'd be that 0.1%. After getting pregnant, she changed her mind and wanted to keep it. I won't lie that I'm not happy about this decision, but I realize it's her choice, and I don't get a say. It is what it is. She's now almost 7 months pregnant and very much showing. Her parents are very traditional, and her dad is a relatively well-known person in his community. He has a somewhat high-profile job as well, even has his own Wikipedia page. To say her parents are trying to get us to get married before the kid is born is putting it lightly. It started off just expecting, "So, when are you getting married?" And now it's been more, "You better get married before this kid is born, because my grandkid won't be a bastard." Personally, I'm not interested in marriage. My parents are both married and divorced twice. Most marriages in my extended family have gone the same, and I just don't really care for the institution. Not knocking it for people who choose it, but it's not for me. Even if it were, I wouldn't feel ready to marry my girlfriends anyway, because we still haven't even been together for a full year. I'd want to date for at least 2 years before getting married. With my girlfriend, I'm not sure if we'd really even be together had she not gotten pregnant. I would rather see if we can make ourselves work than not try, but I'm not keen on jumping into marriage just because there'd be a kid in the picture. I think she's a great person, but I wouldn't say I feel like I'm in love with her. The girlfriend started off indifferent, but is now trying to get married as well. I don't think it's so much she wants to be married to me, as much as her parents have convinced her that she'll be an embarrassment to have a kid out of wedlock. In a twist, last week, her father offered to buy the ring, pay for the wedding, and give me $100K to get married before the kid is born. Not to be nice, but save himself from what he feels is an embarrassment. The whole thing just feels slimy to me. We'd both have good jobs, and while the money would be nice, we don't really need it. I make enough in my job to provide for the kid, as does she. Am I the idiot for not just sucking it up and marrying her, even if I'm not really in love with her? Not the idiot. Pregnancy is not a valid reason for marriage. Be a good father. Show up and be there for both of them. But if you marry someone you're already unsure about, it will end in resentment on both sides. Don't do it. Also, kids can definitely pick up on that resentment. It's better for the kids to not be married if you don't want to be. Your girlfriend isn't the idiot either. She's 7 months pregnant, so hormones are a mess, and she's got her family breathing down her neck and making her feel like crap when she already has the intimidation of becoming a mother in there. That sounds like an awful situation for both of you. Her family is ruining what should be a time for you all to focus on what it looks like to be a family, together or apart, right now. Maybe once the baby's born, you'll bond way more, and you'll open up to the idea. Maybe not. OP, are you 100% sure she was on birth control? This 1000% feels like a plan. At least get a paternity test before you sign any papers declaring you as the father, OP. You don't want to get suckered into raising a kid that isn't yours. Also, what the heck is this talk about the child being a bastard? We are past that as a society. Don't give in to those antiquated ways. It's not a thing where children would be punished or made fun of. The vast majority of children nowadays don't have married parents. No one thinks twice about it. I disagree. OP, you are the idiot. He told all of us, I'm not really in love with her, but I highly doubt this loser told the girl and her father that. He isn't a man. He's an idiot, stringing that girl along. There's nothing wrong with not getting married to a girl you don't love. There's a crap load wrong with not telling your girlfriend, pregnant with your child, that you don't love her and have no intentions to stick with her, married or otherwise. Seriously though, what the heck is he doing waiting for her to give birth before he breaks up with her? That's insane, at least if he breaks it off now. I, 34 female, have been married for 4 years. I have a stepdaughter, Ada, tween, a bio daughter, Serenity, toddler, and a bio son, Milan, infant. My husband, James, was married before we met, and he lost his wife when Ada was only a toddler. I met them when Ada was in grammar school, and a year later, my husband and I became more than friends. Ada and I have a difficult relationship. I love her, and I would never take any of this out on her, but she doesn't love me back, and she resists my place in her life. Most people assume that because she doesn't remember her mom, and because she liked me when I was just her dad's friend, I am essentially her mom now, and that our relationship should reflect that. But once the relationship with my husband changed, and Ada became aware, my relationship with her changed. She closed off from me and has remained that way. We've been in therapy together. She's never said why it bothered her that her dad and I started dating. She's been asked by my husband, me, the therapist, and her aunt, my husband's sister, but she never gives an answer. Day to day, I do a lot of caregiving for Ada alongside my bio kids. Even before they arrived, I was primarily the person who did the cooking and was able to leave work if Ada got sick and needed to come home. I spent time with her and have attempted to reignite our bond, but I never got there. I'm available to help with homework if needed. I make sure she has what she needs. I would give it if she wanted comfort, though she usually just rejects it from me. I still love her, but don't consider myself her parent. I never wanted to take her mom's place. I would be thrilled to just be her stepmom, who she trusts. But I never left the she's married to my dad stage with Ada. I know she doesn't see me as a family of any kind because in school, she's had a few projects where they had to do a diagram of people they considered family, and she never added me. But still, most people call me a parent of 3, and some will call me a mom of 3. My husband's parents mentioned recently that I make being a parent of 3 look so easy. They said I probably want a bunch more and to be a mom of many kids since it suits me so well. I was feeling really low that day, and I admitted to them I felt like a fraud when people consider me a parent to 3 because I don't feel like a parent of 3, and I don't feel like I'm Ada's parent. I sort of feel like someone who's just around her more than average. They were shocked and told me I was being silly, and of course I'm her parent. They said I'm basically her mom. I told them Ada would be adamant that I am no mother to her. They got kind of snappy with me and told me I shouldn't take a kid's words to heart. They told me I was going to make Ada feel unloved if I kept feeling the way I did and thinking as I did. My husband got home just then, and he told them to leave and defended me. But the words struck a chord with me. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They were probably surprised because that's not the picture they imagined of your family dynamics. However, a word of caution. Don't tell people that, because if your relationship with your stepchild does change, you don't want it to be common knowledge that you had a rough relationship. Being in your place is tough, and I understand why you feel that way. It just might not be the most beneficial for you to share that to most people. You are the idiot. I think Ada will never look at you like her mother either, nor would she want to forget her mother who passed away. I don't think she dislikes you, but dealing with grief is hard. She's young and acting immature, which she's entitled to do as she is immature. You're the adult and need to be emotionally mature and continue to embrace her, even though I'm sure it's tough. Also, maybe try a different therapist. I can think of at least 4 reasons Ada might withdraw from you that she might have difficulty expressing, but a good therapist, alone or with her dad, should be able to help her express them without putting words in her mouth. I, teen male, go to a British international school, thanks to my dad. My mom's husband, who she cheated on my dad with several years ago when they were together, can't afford to send his son, Jack Teen, to a similar school. She's tried to get my dad to withdraw me and send me to a public school instead because it isn't fair on Jack, but my dad said no. She's taken to visiting me when my dad wasn't home and saying that I don't have to be in a fancy private school and that I should talk to my dad about withdrawing. She even told me it was giving me an elitist hobby. I like reading Shakespeare, so I told her that it isn't my fault her husband spent all his money on his mistress, something she's vented about to me before, and that she can't expect me to give up what I have now for the sake of a guy I only see once a month. My mom looked really hurt and said I was being inconsiderate of her feelings before leaving. In fact, it makes your mom massively entitled, not to mention she's picking favorites. She would lower the standard of your education and take you from a school you're happy with just to appease your stepbrother? In the horrible way she's trying to manipulate you into giving it up after she tried to go around you to your dad and it failed. Not the idiot all day. And I suspect her reasoning for it has less to do with fairness, but has more to do with appeasing her new husband and his ego, which makes it even worse. And if she's complaining about a mistress, then it sounds like it won't be long until Jack is no longer a stepbrother anyway. Your schooling situation has nothing to do with Jack, and he doesn't need a fancy school to get the education he needs. Good for you that you like reading Shakespeare. It's a nice hobby. My mom looked really hurt and said I was being inconsiderate of her feelings before leaving. Did she consider your father's feelings when she cheated on him? Or yours? Your dad is paying for it, not her. Point out how you value having the education you're getting. The other kid is not your problem, nor is the feelings of the guy who was instrumental in the breakup of your family. Update. So I called Mom and talked to her about it some more. I made it clear to her that I will never give up any of my opportunities for her stepson's sake. She got upset at me and told me that I was selfish. So I told her that unlike her, at least I'm not a cheater who lost custody by snorting crap in front of her then 11-year-old son. That's it. She won't be bothering me anymore. No contact now. We had a second floor added to our house because of our expanding family. Our street is a big hill, so the house to the right of us is lower than our house. With our house now being 2 stories, it blocks the sun from hitting the majority of our neighbor's house, as well as a good portion of her backyard closest to our house. When we were building during the summer, she was upset, primarily because of her flower beds at the backside of her house stopped getting sun. With the weather getting colder, she says it's making her house much colder because the sun never warms it up now. So now she's having to use her heater even though she doesn't usually have to this time of year. She says she'll now have a huge increase in her gas bill. I did suggest that it might balance out since it would keep her house cooler in the summer since she doesn't have to use her AC as much. She says she never uses her AC though because she likes it warm. Anyway, she wants us to pay for the difference in her gas bill, saying if we had just built out, she wouldn't be having this problem. We didn't build out though because we would have lost a lot of outdoor space we use. She says she'll even show me her past electric and gas bills to prove it. I still don't feel like it's our responsibility to pay for that though. Edit. We did have permits and inspections done. Are you in the right legally? Sure. Are you an idiot for changing this woman's world and then acting like it's not your fault? Also, yes. You are the idiot, OP. Changing her sunlight will cost a lot. Flower beds take years to develop and expand on. Going from a sun garden to shade is insanely expensive. It also changes the value of her garden to prospective buyers. My grandfather and later I bought property based on the sun exposure for our flower beds. It's not a minor thing. My neighbor was building a house next to me. We were talking about how his house would block my view. He kindly lowered his roof line in the back of his house so we could have the view from upstairs. We let them use our driveway when they have guests. We help each other out when needed. A little consideration goes a long way. I feel bad for her that your home expansion negatively affected her property. Yeah, I'd be blaring my music every day until 10 p.m., installing huge lights that point in every window of OP's house, buying a dozen chickens with the loudest rooster I could find, and stacking 50 bags of manure to sit against the fence for them to smell 24/7. OP is super lucky his neighbor isn't as petty as me. I'd straight up ruin every day of their life. Yeah, if I were the neighbor, I'd definitely be bummed. OP's making it sound like they get no sun at all, which would be super sad. But OP is legally within their right. If I were the neighbor, I'd be bummed out. But asking OP to pay the bills is ridiculous. I mean, for how long are they expecting? Forever? Based on what rates? Is it based on kilowatt hours usage? Very curious, to be honest. It may be too expensive to move in this housing climate, but sadly, OP's neighbor will have to deal with it. My daughter's school did not choose her to be valedictorian for graduation, and she's still salty about it. Her high school normally goes with the highest grade point average, but it can be between the top 5 students if one demonstrates high academic achievement, like winning a competition. My daughter was the leader of and won a national robotics competition, and being the top 1 to 2 students, she was sure she would get valedictorian. But the school broke away from their criteria by choosing a girl who had been in a car crash caused by a hit-and-run driver. The girl wasn't badly injured, but her mom died from the accident, and she went on to finish the year with good grades. She wasn't in the top 5 students and only took 1 AP course, whereas most previous valedictorians come from the IB or full AP course load. My son was valedictorian 4 years prior and also did full IB. So my daughter was really angry when she found out because she felt like it was unfair and also thought it was racist because the kids and parents had been complaining only Asian students ever got the award. According to her, the last 8 years, it was always an Asian who had won. And while my daughter is half Asian, so is my son, the school was trying to find a non-Asian to appease the families. She said she would have been okay with the other 5 top students winning, but to give it to someone with just above average grades, when the criteria was about academics, made her feel like she and the other 5, which according to her were all Asians, were discriminated against. I don't know if this is true, and I understand why it's unfair, and even agree with it to an extent. But the girl lost her mother and still finished the year with good grades, and that should be recognized. Also, the valedictorian had been made public, and if my daughter tried to get it overturned, it would make her look like a sore loser. I explained all this to her and told her she was going to MIT already with a partial scholarship, and everyone knew she was smart, so she needed to accept sometimes unfair things happen. She was extremely angry at me for not going to the principal about this, and my wife was also angry because she felt like the school discriminated against our daughter. She's now in her first semester at MIT, and while she likes it, she says most people in her class were valedictorians in their high schools, and she feels like she was robbed when she worked so hard. I thought she would forget this, but it seems like she's still angry about it and not as close to me as before. Am I the idiot for not talking to her school about this when I could? Not the idiot. As unfortunate as that is, and despite how much she does deserve to be valedictorian, I think it's an important lesson in how life can really be unfair and how you have to learn to cope with it. I agree in that I think it would make things worse if you and your wife had fought the school about it. It seems like a world-ending injustice to her now, but she will move on eventually. It just might take a while. It's a life lesson. Valedictorian in the long run will mean nothing. Well, it meant an automatic scholarship for me and less student loans. There are a few scholarships out there that are only given to valedictorians. OP, you are the idiot, in my opinion. Valedictorian is a title awarded for achieving, not being a victim. Your daughter has a very strong case for earning the position, and the person who ended up being awarded valedictorian did not earn it. You can empathize with the student who lost her mother, perhaps even support giving some special recognition without using emotion to justify for giving her a title she didn't earn. I agree with your take. I think OP's daughter is 100% right to be salty. I would be too. The school could have made them both, but instead basically said, I know you worked hard your entire high school career, but we feel bad for this girl, so we're going to pity her instead. And the fact that the mom who watched her daughter work so hard and pushed herself so much didn't step in. This is one of those times where the parent should have gone to the school.